Lord of the Rings isn't just a fantasy, it's the blueprint. And by the end of this video, you will see why no story has ever truly measured up. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Extended Edition, a show where two nerds journey deep into Middle Earth and beyond. I'm Nick.
And I'm Justin. In our very first episode, we're asking the question that it lives in the bones of every fan of The Lord of the Rings. Is The Lord of the Rings truly the greatest story ever told? Before we can understand why this story still reigns supreme, we have to go back to where it began. Not for you, for us. I mean, a little bit you, but mostly for us.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are excited for you to join us here on this podcast, a brand new podcast with two really good friends. Justin is one of my closest friends, my childhood friend. I've been knowing Justin all my life, and to do this, to take this adventure with him is an absolute honor. It's almost like a dream come true. We have grown up together. We have had sleepovers. We dreamed. We cried. We laughed. We fought. And to be able to embark on this adventure together throughout Middle Earth and all beyond, it is a dream come true. And it's exciting. I'm so happy that you can join us. So, my friend Justin, I have a really important question for you, my friend.
What do you got for me, Nick?
Really want to know what brought you to Middle Earth.
I think that what really brought me to Middle Earth was that whenever I was, I think it was 2001 or 2002, I watched The Fellowship of the Ring for the first time, and I hated it. I thought it was the most boring movie I have ever seen. I'm not gonna lie. I fell asleep on the floor during the walk out of Moria. I'll never forget it because my mom was like, I thought you really liked the movie, you know, and that's fine. But yeah. So a couple years later, at this point we were already friends, I think, in 2001, 2002. A couple of years later, the video games, The Lord of the Rings, Return of the King for Game Boy Advance came out. And I played that. I played that with my brother like crazy, dude. Like me and my brother played. And then we went back and for like PlayStation 2, Return of the King and the Two Towers came out. It might have came out for PlayStation 3. I can't remember. But those games really immersed me. And I was like, I have to go back and watch these movies.
Is awesome. Those games were so good.
They were. Those games were truly amazing. Let me ask you, what really captured you? Was it the games? Was it the books? What was your first experience with it?
Oh, well, that's really exciting because honestly, you know, for me, I don't think it was like necessarily one experience in particular that really stands out to me. When I reflect on it, and that's what's, you know, sort of has me in my emotions, you know, to reflect on those thoughts really has me reflecting on my life. Because I mean, I still remember like the very first time I actually witnessed, it was not even like a core memory. It was just, you remember my room, where like the TV center and the entertainment center, I remember walking in my room and like seeing like the movie awards, and I was a big Fast and the Furious fan, and I was like, oh, that's so cool. And then Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship was nominated some, and I remember that was like my very first time hearing about it, but my first true experience that I can remember was my dad and, you know, my mom and my brother. You know, we went and see the Two Towers in the movies because I don't think we went and see the Fellowship, but we went see the Two Towers. And I'm a kid, man. I'm like 10 years old at this point, so I'm, you know, not really sure what to expect or, you know, what's going on, you know. So you're just a kid, you're just excited to go. And then I've never forgetting, you know, I'm watching this movie and, you know, when you're a child, your imagination like going full speed, right? Like it's going crazy. I just remember leaving the theater just speechless, you know, and it was one of those things where it was more than just a movie. That was a feeling, right? That was a truly emotional life-changing thing because I'm a kid and I don't know anybody, and just, everything was so big and so real and it was so fantastical, and the character just instantly fell in love with him, and like I wanted to be like Aragorn, and, you know, Gandalf was just seemed like this, you know, incredible, you know, mystical figure, and like what's a hobbit, and then, like, as you spoke before, it was the video games. It was, and from our younger audience, if you don't know or realize, back then, like, movie based video games was a thing. And like, if so, anytime a movie came out, you can put money there was going to be a video game based on that movie, and you can double your money that the game was probably going to suck. I mean, it was just going to be really, it was just going to be really bad. And so, but the 1%, the 1% movie based games that was actually not bad, they were these Two Towers, The Return of King. They were really, really, really good. And I remember Justin, Trevor, Tyler, my friends, you guys would come sleep over and we would stay up all night, who knows how long. And we'd play these games and, we started to, again, enhance that in culture, that atmosphere, and then the best part about it, though, it wasn't like it was just my thing. It wasn't me. It wasn't like something like my mom and dad just supported. No, it was my entire family was obsessed with it. My dad was reading the books. My brother liked it. I don't know if he still likes it, but my sister, she was like with it, me with in on it. She was like obsessed, and so it became like this family thing. So it was Lord of Rings was this thing that's like starting to like seep into my personal life on all these different levels. And then Justin, we can't forget about the woods, right?
Yeah,
My family,
the
we
making
own,
swords, you know.
to give context, my family, we own like this pretty decent sized strip of land. And it used to be like cattle pasture. It was like my grandpa owned it, whatnot. And over time, it just, got wild. My grandpa got older. He couldn't necessarily take care of it. So it just got engulfed or immersed like these wild woodlands. And well, my friends, including Justin, we would go to the back, to the woods, we'd say, and
Build
it became our
forts.
Middle Earth.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. No, seriously. Yeah. Build Force. It became our Middle Earth. It was. We were no longer pretending to be in Middle Earth. We were actually in Middle Earth. You know. We would divide our friends up into factions like Gondor, Rohan, the elves, dwarves, Mordor, or you name it. And we were just, like just said, we'd like literally get sticks and like beat the crap out of each other. Honestly, and we would just go at it, and we would basically play capture the fort, capture the land, whatever, and remember Old Willow? It's a big
Yeah,
old,
yeah, man, that
gigantic
was
oak
Helm's
tree.
Deep Wall, man.
All those core elements, basically shaped my childhood. And I think for me, that's why Lord of the Rings has such a pivotal, like such a special place in my heart. And
So I think that first off, my answer is now terrible. Thanks for that. When all that, I'm over here in my feelings. You understand? Now, my answer feels way less significant, and I was doing great, And I was like, yeah, I really nailed that answer. And then you follow that up with "The Heart Will Go On" by Celine Dion. Like, thanks, man, thanks for that. But you did actually bring up a lot of memories that I completely forgot about. I forgot about the fallen
yeah,
tree. I remember the bows getting
yeah,
so advanced that we had to stop because they started actually puncturing. Um, so,
yeah.
so,
Oh, you should.
so we we
Yeah,
were very
dude, it was getting
primitive.
crazy.
Um,
Yeah. Remember like Little Rivendell? We had like this little strap where it was like it got really really pretty with like the birch trees, and we
yeah,
had
oh
like our
yeah,
white council our meetings. What we were talking about, I
yeah.
have no idea.
Yeah, and I really like I was in my heartstrings about it, like I really was. I was like really feeling the conversation, and then you lost me by saying, "Yeah, my family owned a huge patch of land," and I was like, "I was so poor, I was so poor." Thanks, man. Thanks for reminding me. Uh, so jumping off of that and the emotional side of it that really led you to wanting to fall in love with Lord of the Rings and making it a huge essential part of your life still to this day in well into our 30s. And it's like, what
Yeah.
was the moment during the movies, the books, the games, whatever, that really touched that heartstring? It really made you feel that connection with the characters, because I know exactly what mine was, but I really want to know what got you, what made you feel empathy or anything towards any one of these characters the most, the most one?
I honestly feel like that might be the most difficult question for me to answer, just because there's so many moments. I wear my heart on my sleeve, and I'm a big baby, and I will cry for everything. I will literally start tearing up for the music. Um, but something that comes right to mind, and it's actually from The Hobbit. You know, I know The Hobbit gets bad rap, but there is a beautiful moment in it. I sort of actually shaped a bit of my personal philosophy on. It's how I look at life. Now it's how I try to approach life, and it's the scene in The Unexpected Journey. It's I think they literally just finished the having like the White Council in Rivendell, and Lady Galadriel turns to Gandalf and she asks him, "Why the halfling?" And Gandalf, responds, and it really hits me every time. And I got the quote right here. I don't want to mispronounce it, so I'm gonna pull it up on my notes here. And I think it's a beautiful quote, and it has so much value, and it really, really one of those rare scenes where it humanizes Gandalf, um, to a as to an extent where he's literally admitting vulnerability, and he responds. Saruman believes it is only great power that can hold evil in check. But that is not what I found. I found it is the small, everyday deeds of ordinary folk that help keep the darkness at bay. Small acts of kindness and love. Why Bilbo Baggins? Perhaps it's because I am afraid, and he gives me courage. That, I'm getting emotional thinking about it right now. It's such a beautiful scene, because not only does it humanize Gandalf, but it really crystallizes what the Lord of the Rings is in a nutshell. And it's not that the great powers, there's no great magic or ancient weapons or power armies, you know, that, you know, that Gandalf, finds strength or courage. It's the most unlikely hero. It's Bilbo Baggins. It's the fact that kindness, quiet kindness, friendship, love is what drives the darkness away, and ultimately what wins the War of the Ring.
I feel like that is a far branch off from how stories were told before the Lord of the Rings, wherein they're
Mm,
like you think of because I'm not that well read, things like the Odyssey, right, where there was a very clear hero of that story from start to finish,
mm,
and I think it all
yeah,
comes back to the saying that the person most suited for power is the person who doesn't want it, and I think that that
mm,
alone pretty much encompasses the whole Bilbo getting the ring, and he didn't want it. Fell under its trap just like Smeagol did, and I think that like Frodo also not wanting it, like he put it in a drawer and just left it there for I want to say it was like a
yeah.
year before Gandalf came back to him.
No, in the books, it was actually 17 years.
17 years.
He puts it
Yeah, so you see
17
that
years. He puts it
that's
away, and yeah,
yeah, that's the thing,
yeah,
right? Like that's that embodiment of I don't want anything to do with it, but I'll take up this burden if I have to, right? And
yeah. It's very,
it's a beautiful way for them to like tell the story that Tolkien told the story, uh, and I think that it's inspired almost everything ever since, which is what this whole first episode is really about, right? The
yeah.
fact that the
No,
story is just so powerful and the way that it was
yeah,
laid out and the concepts of the characters have been put into almost every film ever since. The comparisons
yeah.
between
It's true.
every major franchise and Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings did it first,
Yeah.
and it has one of the best told stories. And I know a lot of people complain about the fact that Sauron really doesn't have a lot of depth.
Yeah, the death thing is also interesting, because I mean it's kind of hard, because I mean he never. I don't think we wanted to give him any too much death, right? I mean we don't really. They have the ring. If he gets the ring, so he's always just this constant shadow figure in the background, this constant threat. How do you give a character who doesn't? It's not technically even really there yet. Like he can't speak. He's not an actual manifestation. Like he's not a person. Like we don't know what he's he's never really given that spotlight, so to say. We know what he wants to do, obviously. Like, we understand all that stuff. Does that make sense? Yeah. Yeah.
That reminds me of something that I read the other day in a comment section on a video about Lord of the Rings. It was the personification of Sauron as the Eye. Right. Whenever I was a kid, I thought that's all he was, but
Right. Right.
from the way that it's actually worded, Sauron is like a specter in the Lord of the Rings, and he can kind of travel at will. The Eye is simply a projection of his own willpower, which is crazy to think about. Like, that's his willpower manifested into a
Yeah.
physical form. And when the
Yeah.
eye falls and the tower crumbles, there's a pretty good theory that there was a physical embodiment of Sauron in the tower when it fell, which I think is pretty cool.
Well, in the book, there's a really good. It's a very. That's a whole nother episode. It's a really deep description. But no, like in the book, it literally describes as the tower's falling and the heroes look to the sky and it's like there's actually literally Sauron's shadow hand reaching across the sky and the wind blows it away. And so that I don't think that's too crazy to. All right, nerdlets, if you enjoy that content, then that's all we do here on Extended Edition. So feel free to join the fellowship and send ideas by leaving comments down below.
The road goes ever on, and our journey through Middle Earth is just beginning.